Hello and welcome to another episode of Chatterbox with me, Mel Biggs. This is the podcast where every month I get to sit down with a UK or Europe musician and I get to talk to them about their life in music, their education styles, and I get to know a bit more about the person behind the music. This month my guest is the fantastic Judy Minot. She is the award-winning author of this fantastic book, Best Practice, Inspiration and Ideas for Traditional Musicians. You can get it anywhere in the world, so go and get it. It's absolutely jam-packed with ideas and we get to sit down and talk about quite a lot of them. And she's also provided a Melodeon tutorial for my Patreon community as well. She's a fantastic, interesting person. She has got a wealth of knowledge. She's an Aikido black belt, for one thing, and she used to teach that for 22 years. She's also a yoga teacher and she brings a lot of that mind-body practice into her music. She is an amateur musician, but she's a very classy, sort of traditional musician. She plays a wealth of different instruments. She lives in Ireland, but she's originally from America. And she is just so wonderful. We've kind of really connected on a lot of different levels, and you're going to get to hear a lot more about us fangirling over each other's educational styles. And yeah, it's a really good one for me as an educational geek. I love to sit down and talk about that kind of pedagogy and philosophy and all of that stuff. So without further ado, let's get into it. This is Judy Minot. Judy, I am so glad to have you here. We spoke, I think, about a year ago when you got in touch with me to offer your expertise to the podcast. And we chatted on Zoom, I think, for over an hour. And I just knew from very quickly into that conversation that we connected on a sort of spiritual, intellectual, educational level in terms of what we offer as educators ourselves and as musicians, but also just this kind of massive wealth of information that you bring to the table with your incredible career and hobbies and skills and diversity. So yeah, I think you're going to be useful to everyone that's listening, and we need to make sure that we get as many musicians as possible listening into this podcast. So thank you so much.
Cool. Well, I'm so happy to be here. Likewise. And I had run into so many, Melodeon players that said, well, I follow Mel Big. So I started to go and look you up and I thought, oh man, we got to connect. So
yeah, I'm very, very grateful. So yeah, just touching on that, you are a Melodeon player yourself. How long have you been playing box? Because I know you play other instruments and that you kind of, I think you play much longer than a Melodeon, but how long have you been playing box?
Yeah, I don't know if it's that interesting a story, but I started playing a one row, what you would call a Melodeon, in about 2014 because I got really, really into Québécois music, and that's pretty much the primary instrument in Quebec. I mean, primary accordion, pardon me. In Québécois music, they play a one row Melodeon with like 4 reed blocks, and it's always on. It's like a carousel. And I was totally into it and started to learn a bunch of that repertoire. And then I thought, oh, I should have another key. So what key? And then I found out about this accordion building workshop in the Pyrenees with Emmanuel Paracel, which I'm sure a lot of your listeners know about. And it sounded like dreamy. And so I signed up and it was totally dreamy. Unfortunately, he doesn't do it anymore, but oh my God, it was incredible. So I built myself a 2.5 row, and then I took it home and said, oh, I see that there's this row crossing thing. And so that was all new to me. And so that was 3 years ago. And I signed up for lessons with Paul Young, and for 2 years I've been playing the 2.5 row. And so I'm kind of a novice at the regular, what you guys use in England. It's a DG.
It's a very different box, isn't it, to a one row?
Oh,
so
I thought, I'm just adding another row into a different key. Oh yeah. No. And we tell people that don't play the accordion, they go, what? Huh? So I've been playing accordion. So let me just go back. I played piano as a kid, trained classically. I was getting pushed into the competition and all that, and I just kind of melted down in my adolescence. As I'm sure that's a familiar story to many
I can relate.
Many of our friends. And then just like put it away, and then went on, had a career, did a bunch of other things, and then I was doing Contra dancing, which is a U.S. thing, and started to look at the musicians and go, wow, that looks fun. And so eventually met someone who could kind of initiate me, and then started going to going to camps and things like that. And that was in about 2009. And then I took up the piano accordion because the piano wasn't very mobile. And and I didn't really cotton to the piano accordion. I love it. I have one, but it's not the heart instrument. So in 2014, I took up the violin and the one row about the same time.
Right.
And so really, I've only been playing for like 11 years, like those two instruments. So,
Which
and
one?
so, oh, no, before you say that, I just want to say that's got a lot to do with why I got super into like, I don't have a lot of time left. Like I'm now in my 60s and I don't have a lot of time. So I want to know how to learn this stuff as fast as I can. I want to be efficient and I want to have fun because I didn't have a lot of fun as a kid playing. And so that's kind of like I then became this super evangelist about that. I interest.
Well,
Sorry.
so what before you started your Quebecois journey, was it
Yeah.
all kind of contra? Like, where did classical and jazz? Because I know jazz piano kind of really
Oh yeah, there
features
was
in
a
your life.
jazz
So
bit in there.
how does
Yeah.
every
So
kind of era of your life overlap into the next one? Like in terms of music, I mean.
well, so classical. My frustration with classical it was that I had to play what was written, and in retrospect, I've realized that like my eyes just don't work very well for reading what's on the page, and I didn't know. I just thought I was bad. I just thought I in some way was bad. So but I knew that there was musicality in there. So when I was 49 or so, I found a jazz piano teacher, and I started taking jazz piano, and I found a great jazz piano teacher eventually, and I think I stayed with him for 11, 12 years and learned a boatload of music theory that is more than any person needs to know, but it was really, really fun. I really enjoyed it. But still, the bar that you have to be it's set at to play with others in jazz is very, very high. And so there's this kind of sense that I'm never going to be good enough to really do this. I'm even walking into a jazz jam, like you already have to be like so good. So when I discovered like so that went on, and then the trad thing started happening, and I started walking into my jazz lessons going, I kind of like these really simple tunes with like 1, 4, and 5, and you go, and so I had to keep it sort of secret, which is weird. And I mean, I know other jazz players that don't feel that way about trad at all, but so there I was with these sort of two lives going on. I mean, and they do overlap a lot, but um, um, I don't know where I'm going with that. Did I answer your question?
I think you did, yeah. I think
Yeah.
there is that kind of sensation, and I get this with a lot of my students who tend to lean towards that retirement age project of realizing, oh, I wish I'd started this 20 years ago when my brain worked a lot more efficiently, and
And my fingers.
XYZ reasons,
Yeah.
But it's always that thing. Well, at least you started, and we can get you going as quickly as possible. Here's a load of hacks and kind of quick things to get you over the humps that you don't need to face. Just get there sooner. But I think that a lot of people do kind of get to that point where you realise I'm never going to be as good as I want to be at this. There's so much more to do, and I relate to that. I'm in that position right now with the new instrument in my life. It's not that new anymore, but my massive 18 bass handry, which people might be familiar with from my YouTube sort of vlogging journey with it, which has subsequently stopped because I don't really feel connected with it because I can see all these amazing French players and I'm like, I'm never going to be that, so I'll just stop. But I find other ways to kind of keep myself motivated, and education is always there. I always love providing for other people. But what was it with yourself that kind of, did the jazz piano stop, or did piano become more of a trad thing? Did you start to kind of vamp along with Contra, for instance? I mean, piano and Contra go
Yeah. Oh
hand in
yeah.
hand.
Oh yeah. I
So
ended up in I ended up in playing a lot of Contra. And then one of the nice and kind of appealing things about Québécois music is that the piano tradition is very developed, and you can
mm,
play well with Contra. You can too, with Québécois, they've always done all kind of really cool, very improvisational chord progressions and interesting stuff, and they don't mind it at all. It's not like old time where they kind of go "It's church chords.
yeah.
So the thing that is there's so much music that's appealing, and there's so many interesting interest instruments, and the accordion, as you say, can take you all these different places. You've got different basses, and in a piano accordion, you've got so many ways to set up your basses, and it really depends like, do I play a D G? Do I play a C sharp D? Do I play a D C sharp? Do I play and in Ireland, I live in Ireland now, so I have people playing B Cs, and it's like, should I change? But I think it comes down to, what do you get the joy from?
Mm.
And for me, a huge, huge part of this is playing with others. Like, I cannot tell you how much of a change that is. As a pianist who's used to playing on a giant black beast all alone, all day, that's so mechanical, so mechanized. Like, there's so many things between you and the sound,
Yeah.
And to having like a violin, which is a string and a bow, like, and then a bunch of people around you all supporting you. So the playing with other people is super important to me. So therefore, when I find, as I'm finding a bit now with my Melodeon, that there's not a lot of chance for me to play this in Ireland with other people unless I take a plane over to Halsey, in England, for those of you who aren't in England, or find, that kind of thing, visit my cousin who lives in England and find a jam in her neighborhood. I don't get to play with others, and so it's sort of losing. And that's the same sort of thing happened with jazz. Like, once I lost my group of people that I play jazz with, I didn't know what to do with myself. So you've got limited time to practice and to grow. And so you want to have it be joyful as much as possible. So occasionally you got to kind of step back and go, I'm major into goal setting, and sometimes I talk to people about this. It wasn't me, it was a girlfriend of mine. We used to get together every year. She started me on this thing. She'd say, okay, let's work out. She was an engineer. What are our 5-year goals and our 10-year goals, and what are we going to accomplish this year? And it's kind of cool, because you start to say to yourself, well, actually, why am I doing that? Because sometimes some of us are sort of dutiful students and we just do what we're told.
Yeah.
And sometimes you want to, like, you especially if you have a teacher and the teacher says, well, today I'm going to give you this, and you do it, and like, well, once in a while you got to go, why? Why am I learning all these French tunes, or why am I learning all these 3/2 hornpipes, or why? What do I want to get out of it? What am I getting out of it?
Or in the other, like, compartment, if you're just floating around teaching yourself, it's so easy to get lost in that and get demotivated and procrastinate and pull yourself out of that.
That's my basic whole thing, is like, you can easily go down a million rabbit holes. So how to say to yourself every day, all right, this is where I'm going. I got an hour to practice, or I got a half an hour to practice, or I got 5 minutes before the kids come home from school. What am I going to do? Because these are my goals. I know my goals. They're on a whiteboard, and I'm telling you, literally, I have a whiteboard, and my goals are on the whiteboard. I have for each instrument. This is what I'm working on, and I can go, I'm done with that goal. And so I've got 5 minutes. I'm going to sit down, and I'm going to work on, like, shifting into the third position, or triplets, or whatever I'm doing. That's 5 minutes.
Yeah. But keeping the goals visible is really important, like, isn't it?
And also, it's always in your head. Like, in my head, it's like, I know what I'm working for.
Yeah.
And then at the end of when I've done it, and I have that really nice feeling when you go, done, did that. Like, then you're like, oh, practicing works.
Yeah.
I did it.
I really think it's time to introduce your baby, Best Practice, because this is going to be the bulk of our conversation, because there is so much to talk about in this fantastic book. That's your name on there. Is this the first book you've written? Have you ever written anything else? Yeah, okay.
No, I mean, I was kind of a writer for work, but I wrote very work-like stuff, Like,
okay, so...
yeah.
But this is, I think, the Bible for practice. I will admit, you sent me this lovingly months ago. I only sat down to properly start reading it before about 5 days ago. But what I love about it is, even though it's quite thick to me, I'm not a book lover, because I have ADHD, I struggle to concentrate, I reread things millions of times. this is like it's designed for neurodiverse brains. I don't know if you specifically intended that for, but nothing is longer than a page, really. It's kind of, they're all short blog posts. I think that's how you put it to me. They're all, every chapter is an idea that you expand on in about 4 paragraphs maximum. And it's very easy to flick through, and just kind of not read it cover to cover, even though I have been, because I just wanted to see your process of how you were designing it. But you don't have to, and it's not designed to be read cover to cover. But what I love is just the variety in here, you know, the ideas, and not everything is about sitting down with the instrument. There's quite a lot of things that are away from the instrument and talking to you about how to practice when you're away from the instrument. Tell me how this came about. So, you know, you got into trad music, you know, you realised that you know, you've been playing, you think you said 11 years now, trad, with your fiddle and your accordion. When did this book start to come about? When did this kind of like myriad of ideas start to formulate? You know, how did your motivation as a musician want to help other people on that page, on that journey?
Well, I gotta say that in my very first resume when I was 21, I think at the top it said, my goal is to help, kind of bring artists to their audiences. So I've always been this kind of person who did this interstitial thing, and I knew that. And the other thing I'll say is that, I don't know if you feel this way, but once in a while we all have ideas. Like, I think I could write the greatest crime novel ever, or I think I know how to solve the world's climate problems. But there's very few times when you have an idea like that when you think, and I actually I've got the chops and the skills to do it. And this one was one of those where you kind of wake up so there was, and this was right after I had retired. So there was a book that really helped me a lot when I was going through therapy or something like that, dealing with and it was a book of daily meditations for people who were adult children of alcoholics. But it was the same idea as a daily, every day, oh, here's a thing. And I go, oh, I really identify with that. And if I didn't, I'd skip to the next page. So boom, there's the format. And then, as far as evangelizing trad, I had already been doing workshops at that point. A lot of workshops with beginner trad musicians, people who had just come into this kind of world, whether it was, world music, whether they were playing old time, whatever they were doing. A lot of them were adults just kind of figuring out. Some of them had never played an instrument. And so I was hearing a lot from people, I just don't know how to find the time, or I don't know how to get over this problem, or I hate everything about myself, and every time I make a mistake, I just want to give up. All of those things. Or I feel so tense and my finger really hurts, or my shoulder is making it impossible for me. So all of those things, I thought, you could put all that together, and you are a writer. And I also have a background in between all of this, quitting the piano and growing up and not finding trad. I started to do the martial art of Aikido, and I did that for about 22 years and ended up teaching it for a long time. So those kind of fundamental principles I find really inform a lot of what I do and who I am. And a lot of it is about mind and body coordination. And a lot of it is about how you can relax to be more effective, and how you're actually stronger and more capable and more flexible when you're relaxed. And yet how our normal reaction to being threatened, and I use that in a broad sense, or feeling that we have to do something, or feeling that something is hard work, right, is difficult. All of those things bundled up together, like a sort of threatening, but also hard work and difficult, we tense. And so the process of learning Aikido was learning to relax when you feel at your most kind of distressed. And it's kind of fun because you really find out if you did it, because you smack somebody to the ground. But anyway, but as far as music, that doesn't happen. But when you do find out that you did it, people go, whew,
Well, I guess you could kind of like smack that tune to the ground in the same sense of, well, that passage that's always caught you out. It's like, if I relaxed through it, yeah.
No, and but you get the same adrenaline hit. You get the same kind of serotonin
Yeah, yeah.
rush.
You talk about it a lot throughout the book, in different ways. Different chapters of the book explore about this mind-body connection and breathing, and you go into some detail in some of the chapters into little exercises that people can do to become more connected with that if they're not used to that. 1 point focus, I think, was something that was really special, that stood
Yeah.
out.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
and I
Yeah.
think that's something to connect, particularly as an accordionist, where, generally we're sat down to play. So it's that grounding thing of where is your center and how can you just make your focus on that, irregardless of what's happening on your fingers.
Yeah, and trust
And
me, trap set drummers, they do that
yeah,
because they're on this wiggly little seat and they got their feet going and they got their arms going and they absolutely have to find that.
yeah. So this,
Yeah.
and as well as Aikido, you've said about being a yoga, I don't know if you call it a master, yoga master, but you got to a point where you were teaching yoga as well. So obviously another mind, breath, body connection. How did the two work together in terms of Aikido and yoga? Where did they fall in your life, and how did they come to be? And where did you find yourself that you thought, I need this in my life now, I need more of this?
I guess people might not really associate this, but to me, the closest thing to Aikido when I couldn't do Aikido was yoga, because it was the practice that had the most articulated ideas about connecting mind and body.
Mm.
And my particular school of Aikido, it was like that was the thing. Like it really, on top of everything else, it's just like connect mind and body. So even though yoga doesn't involve like self-defense, when I had some problems with some of I moved, so I was a little too far away to practice Aikido. I sort of replaced it with yoga, and I really only became a teacher. I didn't end up teaching a whole lot, but I did the whole teacher training course because I found it interesting. I've taught some yoga for musician classes here and there. But the teacher training gave me a lot of anatomy background and a lot more of the in-depth understanding of how the musculature works and what certain poses were for. And I found that kind of interesting. I think a lot of people who I work with or who might read the book or who are playing music or whatever, probably have are more likely to encounter yoga than they are to encounter Koki-Kai Aikido. So it's the kind of, if I speak on that level, it can resonate a lot more quickly.
Mm. Another thing that really stood out from the book is, and you mentioned that this came from your yoga practice and the understanding of yoga setting an intention at the beginning of the practice. And, practice is a word we can kind of put into all sorts of different contexts. And I think that's kind of beautiful, isn't it? How we can talk about yoga practice, Aikido practice, musical practice. I myself, I'm lapsed. I need to go back to it, and I will be. But Pilates is my kind of mind-body connection, and that's brought a lot of peace and confidence with my body, really, to know how to control it better, but also to understand it more, to kind of understand areas of my body where I feel pain but didn't know why and didn't really have any kind of real sense of the shape of that. But just kind of building that with some really well-informed and highly qualified teachers, it kind of really helps me to set intentions for how I want to kind of move forward from that practice point in the day. It's like it sets me up to go, that pain is now rectified. I now understand it. I can forget about it or minimize it and then move
Or
forward.
minimize it, yeah.
Yeah.
Or just draw attention to it. Just like a
Yeah.
lot of times we have this thing where we're like, I have pain, but the goal is to just shut that down.
Mm.
And instead, if you sort of draw attention to it when you're playing, you're like, oh, okay, when I did that, my shoulder hurt a little minute, so maybe I should do that.
Mm.
It's funny, this mind-body connection thing, because we talk a lot about it, but the thing is that in our Western culture, we have a persistent view that the body and the mind are different. They're separate, that your body is a container and your mind's in the container. But more and more research shows that the mind actually kind of extends through the body, like this, the chemicals get sent out, and sometimes you have a chemical that causes a reaction, and nothing has reached your head yet.
Mm.
Like there isn't time for that thing to get to your brain before you've already taken your hand away from the stove, or you've, whatever you've done,
Yeah, responded to it.
responded to it in some way. And there's other stuff that sort of says that when your body is like when you have a problem with where you're quadriplegic or something like that, like it minimizes your ability to feel emotion. It actually reduces something that we think of as a mental thing. Um, and I would love someone to find me that research because I searched, but I'm pretty sure it exists, but it's very hard. Anyway, you can take that bit out. Anyway, but I think that the thing is that's so cool about music is that when we play music, it's like we totally get that
Mm.
because we have to use our mind and our body together. Unfortunately, we persist in the language of body and mind being separate. We say, I've got it in my fingers now.
Mm.
And that's complete wrong. It's not right. Like, you don't have it in your fingers or muscle memory. Well, okay, muscle memory is a little bit better because when you say my muscles have some bit of my mind, well, I'm kind of okay with that. But really what's going on is you have a series of things. I'm trying to make my fingers be right in the screen. So you have, let's say I learned how to do a triplet or a 5-note roll, okay? So I'm doing violin, but similar on the accordion. Da 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 da, and then I learned da 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 da, and then I learned da 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 da. Well, what I went from is 5 separate things in my brain, chick 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 chick, to boom. That's one synaptic event. I say roll, and my fingers go brip. So now the same thing happens, say, for example, when I say relax, find my 1 point. It used to be, okay, imagine a place 2 inches below your navel, nestled against your spine. Okay, imagine that place being very, very heavy. Now, relax it. Now I just go 1 point.
Yeah.
So this is mind, body. That is, you could call that muscle memory. I don't call that muscle memory. That's my mind and body, but they're just, my synapses have now just zipped across that really fast.
Yeah.
So that's why I encourage people to really sort of learn to incorporate their body in their playing, like to be more aware of what their body, how their body is supporting what they're doing, because it offers your mind the most freedom to listen and to respond and to be flexible.
Something that I talk about more and more in my teaching is about thinking less and feeling more, and I kind of I talk about it in different ways for different students depending on their own understanding of their body, and if they have a practice like yoga or Pilates, then I can be a bit more flowery, I suppose, in the language there. But particularly as I teach a lot of men, and generally they don't do those sorts of practices because, well, they should. It's for everyone. If you've got a body, you could be doing Pilates and yoga, but generally I find that they are a bit more shut off from that connection. So it's trying to find ways of exploring that in a way that feels safe to them and comfortable and doesn't put them on the spot with things that they, language they don't understand or might feel embarrassed about because it might be deemed to some people as being a feminine thing that isn't part of them. But, it's trying to kind of find a way of making them realise that, and this goes for anyone, if we overthink things, if we use that lovely intelligent brain to think through problems, sometimes it's not a mental problem, it's a physical thing. And most often if you reach that block, it's something in your body that you're not aware of that's stopping you from getting there.
Yeah.
And just trying to kind of find other ways of connecting back to, take some steps back, let's get into the body with the rhythm, and then feel the rhythm in different ways. And can you move your joints that you require to play this piece of music? Right. And if there's a bit of something sticking, then maybe that's part of the problem, and we can kind of learn to move through that. And if there's pain, then we need to get that seen to if it's something serious. So it's really fun to explore that with people who have never taken the opportunity or even thought that was part of the journey. But it's such a huge thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking of a violin example because I just took another great workshop where we were taking apart problems. And I was trying to put it into a Melodeon context. But like a lot of times you think a problem is because you don't know the right note. I keep making a mistake on this note, and you play it again and again, and you still make a mistake on this note. And if you take apart, you sort of say, all right, just let me treat my brain like a 2-year-old, and just sort of simplify this. Like this word is, anti-disestablishmentarianism. Let me take it apart in little pieces. And so you take apart what you need to do, and you realize like, oh no, I'm crossing the rows and this finger has to go over there. And I'm having trouble with that. So let me just get the bellows out of the way for a second, get the chords out of the way for a second, and just set myself up in this really relaxed way. And then see if maybe if I move my wrist a little this way, I can get my finger over there. Or maybe if I push a little harder on the bellows, I'll get a little more out of the note before I get over there. But once you realize it's a physical thing, then you're not bad anymore.
Yeah.
You're not a bad person. You're not sort of stupid for forgetting the note. It's just it's just a simple thing. I just have to work out this physical thing.
Do you find that you still have to remind yourself that you're not a bad person for getting things wrong or like working harder, even though you've written this like Bible of best practice? Is that still something that you're... Judy's so covering herself up for those that can't see on YouTube.
We all do.
Yeah.
In the course of writing this book and in the course of all the stuff that I do, I've spoken to so many people, and God knows I do it a lot less.
Yeah.
And not to the intensity that I used to do it. But I handed the book just the other day to a fiddler who's really amazing, and I said something like, last year you said something complimentary about my fiddling, and I thank you because I really think of myself as kind of a crappy fiddler. And he went, "You do?" And I said, "Well, look, we all do. I mean, we all do, and that's partly because we get to a certain level, and what do? We reach for more." Mm. And so we're always like looking at this bit where we can't do that and we want to do that. And what we don't realize is underneath us is a mountain, a mountain that's growing and growing. So of course we all have those thoughts. And again, to bring up Martin Hayes, I was in a lesson with him and someone asked him about this and he said, yeah. And then he proceeded to tell a story in which he felt like he wasn't good enough. He was playing with an orchestra, and there was a ton of musicians who'd studied all their lives, and they all knew all this music theory, and that's just not what he does. And so he had this moment of, and we all have that because there's never a ceiling here, and that's great. We should celebrate that there's never a ceiling. But once in a while, you got to look at what's underneath here. I mean, there's the whole issue of negative self-talk. It's like, we all feel that way.
How do you deal with that? Because that's been something that's plagued me, and I go through stages where it's more of a big issue in my ear and my life, and sometimes where you feel more confident, so it kind of outweighs that negative little gremlin at the table. But how would you recommend somebody deals with that negative inner talk?
Well, one of the 4 basic principles of Kokikai Aikido is positive mind, and what was lovely for me. That we made that very physical, We would do an exercise where we would try to push somebody, and then we would try again when we were saying to ourselves, I can do this. I can absolutely do this. And you would feel the difference. Mm. So it was very like visceral when it worked, But that's not to say that suddenly, I'm going to stop having negative self-talk, because it isn't, because it doesn't. So there's one thing. One thing is that it works, okay? You have to know that it works. And so, you can try stuff yourself, but the only way you can know is to record yourself, because you can't really hear yourself while you're playing. Yeah. Hello out there, listeners, record yourself.
I also echo that. I've been telling people about it over the last few years, because it's a vital tool. Even though you have to get over the red light phobia and all the technological stuff, get over it and work through that, because the good stuff's coming.
Yeah, just make it a daily part of practice. Don't make it some big deal. But anyway, so like benchmark, do something where you try it and then say to yourself, okay, I'm going to record it again, and I'm going to really, all I'm going to do is think, I'm the best, and then play the tune and just see if you can hear a difference. So that gives you a it works. Then I use the word discerning. as opposed to the word critical. This is a term I got from studying like Buddhism, like doing meditation. And they talk about being discerning. Discerning is a good thing. Discerning means I can tell the difference between what I want and what I don't want. Like that is super. That's like what you give a 4-year-old. You want that, good. You can have that. Try for that, work for that. But critical is like you're not doing it. You're always gonna not do it. You've never been able to do that. Why don't you even bother to do that? And so there's this sort of thing you can kind of imagine a windshield wiper and say, no more of that. I'm going to say, what would I have liked myself to say instead of saying, oh, you messed up again? I would have liked myself to say, there it is. There's the problem I want to work on.
Yeah.
Now I know what it is. Now I know how, at least what it is. Now, how am I going to fix it? Ooh, that's an interesting problem.
Yeah.
That becomes a totally different thing. And your brain is just a little puppy. You just
Don't smack
need
the puppy down. Like,
don't
build the
smack
puppy
the
up.
puppy. Give the puppy pad and offer it a biscuit at the end. Yeah.
In that sort of category, I think in the mistakes chapter, you talk about, reterming that phrase. And I also am the same. I have to say, by the way, guys, it's going to probably get a bit boring me saying a lot of what Judy writes, I preach in my own way, but it's kind of lovely to meet somebody kindred spirit. But that idea of reterming the phrase mistake, because that is smacking the puppy down, and you've got to sort of think offering a mistake is actually, this is what I want to work on. This is something to work on. This isn't something I want in my playing. And I thought this is such a beautiful, simple way of rewriting that script in our heads. And so many of my students do struggle with that image of perfection. We're striving to be perfect, and I'm like, no, that doesn't exist. I'm really sorry, but it just doesn't, and I think all of the professional musicians who sat with me on this podcast, when we've got onto this topic, it doesn't exist for them either. And I look up to them, they're far higher up the tree in the way I see them. And it's just like, wow, okay, that's a real big thing for me to listen to, because doesn't exist up there higher up the tree either.
No, and I once said to my piano teacher, "Wow, I'm so happy to be studying with you. I'm actually getting to like the sound of my jazz piano." And he said, "Well, don't get used to it." And I thought, what? And then what he went on to say was, you're never going to be satisfied because you're a person who wants to continue to be better. And you're just going to have to get used to the fact that you're going to always find things that you want to improve on. It's just the question of rewriting the words you use,
Just a little segue from this. I'm just thinking, whilst your book is for amateur musicians, I was reading it and thinking, well, I've said I'm a professional musician, but I know that in reality I'm somebody who's self-taught, worked hard. I've never formally studied music other than a GCSE at school, and there's always going to be things that I'm striving to learn and achieve, but I think the book is suitable for everyone, basically, is what I'm trying to say. But in that sense, I lost my train of thought. That's really annoying. And if you want to hear me pick up my train of thought, you're going to have to sign up to the extended podcast. This month is another bumper episode, an hour and a half's conversation, and we are going to get to hear from Judy about a really interesting conversation that she had with Irish fiddle player Martin Hayes and his take on a specific thing that you'll have to sign up to find out about. How Judy wrote the book. I was really interested to know how this amazing collection of ideas came together and how she was able to compile it into the book. Really interesting kind of guide on how to set your mindset when it comes to compliments and negative self-talk and how to work through that. Judy breaks down this concept of working step by step through problems that she has picked up from another traditional musician along the way, and you're going to get to hear exactly how you can implement that in your own practice. And also more about Judy's journey as to becoming an educator and how that's evolved over the years. Just some really interesting advice and guidelines there for other educators, or just simply if you're teaching yourself. If you want to get hold of the extended podcast of this episode and also all of the other guest tutors, you'll have to sign up to the Chatterbox tier or the Archangel Plus tier, where you will also unlock the Melinar tutorial archive, where all of the guest tutors have provided a teaching element to their conversations as well. The link to that is in the show notes. And now back to the interview.
I've never been a teacher who teaches people how to play the X. And I will say this for all you teachers out there. I've taken a lot of classes here and there, sometimes one-offs, sometimes for a while. And I got to say, most of the trad teachers that I've worked with don't consider them teachers. Like they haven't gone to music teaching schools. They don't, there's a certain sense in the back of your mind that I'm not sure that I'm right. I've had plenty of teachers say, I'm not going to tell you how to do that. I don't know how to teach you how to hold the bow. There's a certain reticence to talk about how to play it. And I just want to say, don't do that because people need a little help. They need just to know how you do it.
Yeah. I think that's the key thing is they've come to you for your advice, and they can then filter it with everyone else's advice that they've gathered. And I think that that's what we all do, right? I mean, even as a teacher, I've got my own things that I feel I've created, but nothing's created in isolation. And there are things that I borrow and credit other tutors for. And I know Andy Cutting very graciously credits me for my air button exercises that he teaches when he's in that mood. Because he tried it and found them really useful. And that's really lovely that we all just kind of pass ideas on to each other and borrow and share. And, I think that it's just everyone will have their own unique way of phrasing things that might just click for some people more than others.
Yeah. So. What we do is we teach people a thing that they thought was magic, because there are people out there who can do that thing I just described. And we have a tendency to get a little frustrated with those people and, how come they can do that? But the thing is that they have already learned to turn that into one synaptic event, but it doesn't mean they were born with a talent that we don't have. It doesn't mean there's some magic called it it just means that whatever their brain was like inside, and as a neurodivergent person, you know that we have different brains. Some people's brains just cotton to putting that all together faster. And as a teacher, what we do is we take it apart and we show them all the pieces that actually they didn't even figure out themselves.
Yeah.
And we teach to people, see, you can do this. All I need to do is explain the alphabet and what all the noises are that each one is associated with, and then how they go together, and you'll be able to read.
I'm nodding away furiously for anyone listening on the audio only version, because it's just like, this is it. This is how I teach. I totally am on board with this. The most difficult thing sometimes, is what you said in the beginning, is getting people to deconstruct and start at a random point of the tune where they need to. And I'm quite strict. I'm a very patient tutor, and I have all the patience in the world, and I've got a very calm voice when I teach, but that's the only time where I might get a little bit like, nope, a bit snippy. It's like, nope, you're going back to the beginning, stop. You're letting yourself go back to the beginning, and you're never going to learn that difficult passage unless you learn to start at the beginning of that difficult passage. So ignore the rest of the tune. Here, just listen to this note.
It's hard.
This is the note you need.
It's hard. And then, oh my God, I think that's the hardest thing. And as a student, it is, as I say, it's discouraging. So I just want to all you students out there to just know that I know it's hard. It just seems like it takes so long, but it won't always take that long. But it certainly will. As my mom said when I went back for a master's degree, I said, I'm so old. How could it's going to take me so long to get this degree. And she said, well, it's going to take a lot longer if you don't start.
This is true. I have got quite a few questions we've got a bit of time left before the end, but I know that it's going to take some time to get through them, because I would love to dive into your brain and have your opinions on these. The first one is actually from me, but I know it's going to be very helpful for a lot of people. You mentioned a lot about attention in the book. There was, in fact, a chapter on attention, but for me it was a little bit short, and I was like, I don't feel I kind of learnt how to grapple with my attention deficit disorder from this chapter. And there's probably also a chapter on procrastination, although I haven't got there yet, but just how to hit.
maybe
because
tomorrow.
I procrastinated too much about not reading the book. So how can we beat this kind of the deep mental funks, this feeling of, knowing you want to practice but struggling to get to the instrument? We're procrastinating, we're making excuses for ourselves. What's the bonus, the bonus points here for neurospicy brains, but like how can we get around all of that to get to the instrument and sit down and play?
You have to find as many. You have to give yourself a doggy biscuit.
Be kind to the puppy.
Yeah, be kind to the puppy. Like you need to make your practice space a place you want to go.
Yeah.
Fill it with your favorite drawings and like snuggly pillow and your stuffed alligator or whatever it takes. Make sure the lighting is nice. Make sure everything's close to hand. If you always need a pencil, make sure there's a pencil there. Stupid stuff. You also need to goal set so that you know what you're doing, so that if you sit down, you have this sort of yummy feeling. Like it's not like this heavy, I have to become a perfect musician, heavy, heavy. It's like, no, I can't wait to learn how to get the first five notes of that tune right, or I can't wait to I have a big goal, like to learn to play an F, or to learn to do a particular funny bow thing. Like, oh, I really want to play on that a little. And that means that even if I sit down for 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and that's the first thing I do. I'm sorry, people. I know, I'm sorry. All the teachers out there that tell me that I should do warm-ups. I don't. You're welcome to do them yourself if you like them, but I don't, because if I only have 5 minutes, I'm going to play with my little play toy, and my little play toy today is the sautillon bow movement, or it's the doing a switch to third position. I'm just going to do that for a minute. I'm just going to practice the beginning of tune names are all blanking to me, but just give yourself a little doggy biscuit, a piece of chocolate. Oh, piece of chocolate. My teacher used to say, my piano teacher, he said, you always sit down with a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and a biscuit. You just make it, it's like, I get to like settle in here.
Yeah.
Just find the ones that work for you. Once you've done your 10 minutes on playing Shatisha Vermouth, like physically get a sticker with a goofy face on it and put it on your music. Do whatever it takes to make your brain go, oh, thank you, I'm good.
Yeah. No, I love that.
Put a smiley face on your computer.
I think the other thing as well, because as soon as you said goal setting, internally I started like caving in, because that's like a big thing for me and struggle. But in your book, I love how you broke down, like, think of a daily goal, a weekly goal, a monthly goal, and then you can go beyond that if you need to. But it's just trying to sort of write down everything you want to achieve and then sort of like just subcategorize them gently, as I'm telling my puppy in my brain, like gently subcategorize. Actually going, can I achieve that in a week if I really put my mind to it? Probably yes. Yeah. Okay, so let's put that on the board and let's work towards that. And I thought that was a really smart way of, I've got a lot of tutorials on my Patreon, and I talk about goal setting because it's a question that constantly comes up. And I know from myself, when I'm in a routine and I'm kind of on a roll with things, then that comes naturally to me. But it's like trying to kind of find those gears when you need to, you need to get back to it, but you're struggling. I think it's just that, love that kind of find a piece of chocolate and feed the puppy, and although don't give chocolate to dogs, obviously, but
no. Well, I think there's a difference between the big goals, like the year goals and the 5-year goals, and the day goals. So the big goals are every year or so I'm going to revisit this, and I'm going to decide if these are still my goals.
Yeah, that's important, isn't it?
And the little goals are in order to get to the big goals, and they give you. This is an amazing thing, but once you say to yourself, what I'd really like to be able to do is get on the stage and play Les Deux Frères. That's my year goal. So then all the little things that you are doing meanwhile are getting towards that goal, right? So when you're having a day where you don't feel like you're able to capably think about a lot of big things, you just say, oh, that's okay. I'm just doing this little thing. Yeah. And that's your piece of chocolate, for the day. It's just like, today all I'm doing is like arpeggios in F. And I did that. I'm done. I'm happy. Now whatever else I do, because what always happens is that after you spend 5 minutes playing the instrument, you want to spend another 5, but don't tell your bad self that, because, and you sit down and you go, all I'm going to do is just work on this little thing. And then the next thing you know, half an hour's gone by.
And exactly. Oh, for me, it's like 3 hours, because I do have that luxury, Normally, actually, as a musician, I'm doing a lot more non-musical things, and I do know that that's a factor for a lot of professional musicians, but it's no excuse. We obviously need to spend time with our instruments, and that is the beauty of, if you can just coax yourself to do 5 minutes, then you're there forever.
I have another thing real quick. I know we're up against time, but There's a thing in the book about getting kind of oriented with your body clock. And if you,
Yes,
some
working
people
out where
tell
you've got the
me,
most energy and like
yeah,
what
where do
to,
you have the most fun? I'm a morning person. You may not
yeah,
be. So figure that out and don't stupidly wait till 5 o'clock to practice because the time's going to come and you're going to go bleh. So
yeah.
I always practice in the morning. And if it's 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, I just got to say, I don't think it's going to happen.
I did say I had a student once who worked shifts and they changed regularly, so he really struggled with that. But I said, try to practice before your shift because you will have slept at some point and you'll have most energy. And even if it's 10 minutes, it will be the best 10 minutes you can spend with your instrument. And he made massive progress, even though his shifts were all over the place. And I was really impressed with that. That was it was really, really good. Bit of advice to kind of give him. So I loved reading about that circadian rhythm thing because I think it's important for so many things. Let's go for more of like a hard hitting kind of, I'm going to hit you with some questions and just give me like the top tips because
Okay.
we are running out of time and I want to make sure we get through these wonderful questions. So these are from my Patreon community. My wonderful friend Sandy has said she's got an issue in that she has a problem not retaining tunes unless she plays them all the time. So often a tune starts in a session and I think, oh, I know this, and then I find it slipped away from my fingers because I haven't played it in a long time. The larger my so-called repertoire gets, the more tunes just drop off the front end. How can I keep hold of them?
Well, you can be really nerdy about it like I am. I have a little spreadsheet. Thank you, Paul Young. He gave me this little format for a spreadsheet with all my tunes on it. I have three of them actually, Irish, Québécois, and Melodeon tunes. And I have all the tunes on there. And then there's a thing for the date I last played it. And then there's also in ABC format, I put the first three
Yeah, so
first bits of the tune because my particular thing is I absolutely know the tune once it gets started, but I can't do the start. So
yeah.
I'm opposite of your student. But so what? There's a cool little formula that where you can I make the dates different colors depending on how long ago it was that I played the tune. So when they start to go red and black, it's trouble, trouble, trouble. It's true. You can't possibly keep up with your whole repertoire. So then the next thing might be to quickly find 20, just 20, and make sure you got those 20.
Yeah, just kind of keep them fresh and sort of
Yeah,
change them around every so often as and when you want to, yeah.
yeah.
I love that. I did have a student once who had an even more geeky version of what you just described, and she would have codes for how well she knew them. Like I think it was like a rating out of 3, and it was just the most incredible thing. I'm not that person. I'd love my autistic side would love to be that person, but unfortunately, I battle 2 wolves in my brain. I'm never going to be that person, but I think that's great. Yeah, and again, whatever works for you at the end of the day. Jumping on to another student of mine who's on my Patreon, she always seems to have so many things to practice and the scattergun approach doesn't help. Help, as she says.
I think goals help a lot.
Yeah, so she really, I know, because she has private lessons, she's a very she practices a lot, but she wants to do a lot of things, and it's that sort of candy shop approach of I want it all now, but she recognises that it's just going to take time, but it's frustrating, and she wants to organise that scattergun candy shop.
None of us. We all face this. So you just have to say, okay, well, here's the 15 things that I want to work on, and just list them out.
Yeah.
And then go, all right, well, let's pick 3. Pick 3. And I have 3 that are kind of like smile all the time when you're playing. Always have your shoulders relaxed. And always start the tune as if you mean it. Don't start in a sort of weak, flabby way and then get into it after the second time through. Those are my 3 things. They're not like being able to play this one and being able to play that one. They're that.
The note perfection thing. Actually, just really quickly segueing onto the practice pyramid, which is one of your appendices that you went into more detail on. Is that something of your design? I've never come across that, but I loved it. It makes so much sense.
Cool. I hope I gave credit to where it came from.
Oh, maybe you did. Let me flick to it. Basically, and this is a massive plug to get the book if we haven't plugged it enough already, because it's this idea of you kind of, as a music, you can only do, you need to keep in time as a musician, and you need to stay relaxed. Those are the foundation things that you want to work on achieving. And then you've got three sides of the pyramid, and you can choose to keep two, I think you say, is that right? Keep two but let one go. The three sides are playing fast, playing perfectly, or playing the whole thing. And you know, we can eventually maybe do all of those things, but actually most of the time we're not going to be able to do that. So we have to stay relaxed and we have to stay in time. And if we can't do those, that's what we're practicing to remain in. Once we can handle those foundational things, then it's like, right, I'm going to stay relaxed, play in time, and play fast. Maybe. Yeah. I hate playing fast, so I'm never really bothered with that. And then you can kind of switch in and out of like adding another priority to the plate spinning, I call it. It's like trying to spin many plates. You can't spin all of them at once. You've got to learn to spin one and then the other and then the other.
Well, and you can switch them up. So this came from Kenny Werner, who's a jazz pianist, and he had a thing called the practice diamond. Okay, and I changed it a little bit because I felt. And I've even changed my mind a little bit about this. But anyway, if you want to try to keep in time when you're doing this thing, you want to try to keep in time. That's the base of the pyramid. And then, as you say, you can practice the whole thing. You can practice it perfectly, or you can do it at the full speed that you eventually want to do. But for me, the intensely cool thing was that I never practiced at full speed because I couldn't get it perfect. And so I never was practicing at speed. And so when I looked at the practice pyramid, I said, you know, I can give myself permission to make a ton of mistakes and play it fast. Well, that's another form of practice. It's not what you should be doing every day, but it does have benefits. 100%. So yeah, you can just kind of toy around with the little Rubik's pyramid of it.
Yeah. I think that's a really nice way of offering that as a suggestion to Naomi. What's the most common mistake people make with practice, and how can they change it?
Oh, I think the most common mistake people make is not to slow down and get the notes right. I said it, slow down. Okay, most common mistake is not to slow down. Slow down. I once accused Paul Young of metronome shaming me.
I've heard he does this a lot.
But and this is me. I wrote a book, right? So I said I'm playing the tune, and he goes, "Yeah, slow it down." And I'm like playing it, I don't know, 86 something, and he goes, "Slow it down to like 50." And I thought, oh my God, he thinks I'm terrible. But actually, he was right, because when I slowed it down to 50, I could do it. A thing happened in my body. Remember we talked about body mind? And so my body just relaxed.
Yeah.
And I could make I had time to think, oh, this is on the G row. And then I got to this chord. And I'm going to pull in this so I could do the F sharp. And it was like suddenly this is how the tune ought to happen. And so I stopped thinking about I'm a bad person because I can only play at 53. And then of course what's astounding, right, is that once your body says, oh, that's what you want me to do?
Yeah.
Speeding up is easy.
Exactly that. I have a whole series on Patreon called Playing Faster, because that's the selling point, right? People want to play faster. Well, some people do. But actually, the whole point of that is to teach you to play slowly.
Yep. So the second most important thing that people need to do is use a metronome, and that's all I'm going to say about that. Thank you.
100%. And it's mentioned so many times in this book, but it's you know, we have to be able to get over that irritation, because I know it does stress people out, but it's such a valuable tool. Jumping on, my biggest challenge is just sitting down and starting. Help with that, please.
Well, I think I talked about that a little. That's the stuff about make your practice space a nice place to play. Divide the things you're doing so that you know what you're going to do the minute you sit down. Make it something you want and that you know that you want to do. So, okay, I don't want to go practice because I have to go upstairs and sit on the uncomfortable couch and shut all the doors, and there's no light in there, and the dog's always barking outside, and I don't really know what I want to do, and I always have to start with half an hour of warm-ups. I mean, who wants to do that? So do something in a place you like with a cup of tea that you want to do.
Yeah. And again, I think everything we've talked about in terms of goal setting, you can just then cherry pick and find the tastiest piece of chocolate for that day and that moment to kind of choose.
Put a whiteboard in your space. Best thing I ever did.
Last question from my community is, how best to practice for working in a collaboration where you don't live near each other, so you can't play together very often? So how can you hack playing by yourself to optimize the time when you are together with your group?
That's a very interesting question. So I would say that, I tell this to people and they're not very techie, so they don't like this, but Amazing Slowdowner is one of the most awesome apps there is in the planet. And so if you can figure out how to get recordings from your friends into your Amazing Slowdowner, we have this great blessing that we're all able to record ourselves so easily now. So ask your friends to record their parts and put them in your Amazing Slowdowner, which allows you to like slice little bits out. It's so cool.
Create loops. I love that. I've learned a lot.
One
of my projects is a Indian music project, and a lot of the music is not it's not natural to me because it's not diatonic.
And not a weird time signatures like that.
It's amazing, but I have definitely loved Slowdowner to the nth degree because of that project, and it's incredible. So shout out to that. I'm going to leave you with this question. What is the hardest thing about practice in your own life that you struggle with?
Negative self-talk. I struggle.
Yeah.
And
do you find?
Look, okay. I have on my computer is a piece of really beautiful Italian paper, and in the middle of it in gold. This is how I'm trying to treat my brain nice. In gold, it says, "You're very good." Because I look at that and I have to remind myself,
I don't have it up here anymore, but behind here is a notice board, and I used to say basically the same. You're good at this. You're good at what you do. Because for a long time, I didn't believe it. And many of my long-term followers and students will know that because they really had to coach me through that and support me through it. And I don't require that in front of me anymore. Sometimes I probably do for different reasons, but it is important to remind yourself of that, isn't it? Have you found, just like another sort of part B question, as you have gained more of a reputation, you've obviously written a book, you've gained more hyphens, has that become more difficult? Because it's almost like people expect you to be a certain way or have a certain level of knowledge and expertise, and then sometimes...
A little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't purport. Yeah, I don't purport to be anything more than I am, which is kind of a helper. But there are times when I find myself in a public place, playing in a public place, and I think, oh, you better not have bad posture, because if anyone's read that book and it's all about posture, you better be having good posture and you better be smiling too, But, I mean...
We're all just human at the end of the day, aren't we?
Exactly, and everybody.
We move through life, we pick up more and more skills, and particularly if we move laterally, like both of us have, in the sense of mind-body connection and different practices that teach us that. I think all we can ever do is make offerings, and I think I've always felt like that with my teaching. It's always been, I know some stuff, I can show you some stuff, I can show you it in different ways, but I might not be your teacher at the end of the day. And that did take me a long time to get the hang of. I was not cocky, I've never been arrogant, but I did used to think I could teach anyone. And then when I couldn't, it was a frustration in me of like, oh, well, I must be able to kind of... But no, sometimes it's just you're not collaborating in a cohesive way with people. And it's very rare, but it does happen. And I think it's important, if anyone's listening who's maybe earlier on in their education journey, to realise some people you won't be able to help. And that's okay, because they will find help elsewhere if you can recommend other people.
And also I want to say, if a teacher doesn't gel with you, feel free to leave them, because sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes you don't click with a teacher.
I'm looking at the time. We have to. You have a wonderful tutorial to now go and give, probably on very, very similar topics to my wonderful Patreon community. As always, everybody listening, this happens live every month. As we record the podcast afterwards, there will be a live tutorial which you can be part of if you're part of my Patreon membership. But you will be able to get the recording as you're listening to this podcast. So I will leave details of that in the show notes. all of Judy's links to get the book, Best Practice, Inspiration and Ideas for Traditional Musicians. It's available on Amazon anywhere in the world, is that right? Wow.
Yes,
amazing.
that's right.
And all of your website and blog links will be down there as well. So do check out the show notes. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, I mean, I hope you all go out there and are inspired to practice in order to get better, in order to get what you want out of your own playing. That's really all.
Yeah. Keep playing. Happy thoughts, and
Yeah.
be kind to the puppy. Actually, it did want to make me go and play. Last night I was reading it because I was like, I'm cramming for an exam. But I'm like, so many times I thought, I've really struggled to pick up the box for months, if I'm being completely honest. I play to teach, and I learn to teach, if I need things to play, but I'm feeling a bit more fraudulent in that sense of, oh God, I'm like not working on my own skills. My own skills are dwindling or like static. But this, now that I've opened it and I really did dedicate some time to it yesterday, I was like, I just want to put this down and go and play. So that is such a great, selling point. And for it to talk to somebody who's been down in the mopes, like that.
Liz Carroll said that. She's a very well-known fiddler. She in her review, she said the chapters make you want to stop reading and go and play. And I thought, wow.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's true for other people. Well, thanks so much, Mel. This has been really, really a joy for me. I really looked forward to it, and it was everything I hoped for. And you are, you're just a great role model and teacher for all your students. So thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much. There we go. I took a compliment, and I genuinely feel like
Good.
I can take that. Thank you so much. And yeah, everyone go and buy the book. If you have enjoyed this podcast, please don't forget to give it a like, subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're watching there, give it a 5-star review if you're on a platform that allows that, leave me a comment, share it to your mates. I really would love everyone to hear this particular episode. I think it's very applicable to all traditional musicians, whether you're professional or amateur. And yeah, just do all the good things to help with spreading the word about the podcast. Thank you to everyone who supports my work on Patreon. We have about 330 odd members now, which is absolutely incredible, and about a third of those are paid members. So thank you to everyone who puts their hand in their pockets every month to give me some money. It really does make a huge difference, and I just love running the community, and the fact that it pays me is an absolute top tip to the hat as well. So thank you so much to everyone that supports me over there. A couple of parish notices before I announce next month's guest. Wilkes's Gob Morris, who is the Border Morris side that I've been part in reviving since we put it to bed a few years ago because of COVID. We are back. We have our first dance out on the 13th of September. We will be dancing at Sharp's Pottery Museum in Swaddling Coat between 1 and 3 p.m. It's going to be a nice low-key event. Lots of interesting things happening during the day, as well as watching some great Morris dancing, hopefully. So come and cheer us on. Hope to see you there. And also I will be at the Stables in Milton Keynes on the 28th of September, leading an absolute beginners level 1 Melodeon course. There will be some Melodians available to hire at no extra charge, so if you don't have your own instrument, no worries. But if you'd like to come and learn how to play with me, I would love to teach you. So get in touch with the Stables directly to book onto that. Links are down in the show notes to all of that stuff, so check out the show notes for all of that. My guest tutor in this month, in September, coming up, but also next month's podcast guest, and I cannot believe this, so I'm going to do a little drum roll, is the fantastic Frenchman, Bruno Latron. I can't believe it. I can't believe he said yes. I've also got my amazing mate, John Gleaves, coming on. He's a professional translator. It was just sort of apparent through talking with Bruno that my French isn't great. His English is okay, but he feels more comfortable speaking in his mother tongue. Of course he would. So it's going to be the first go I have at working with a translator, but my friend John is a former student and a massive Bruno Latron fan, so I think it's going to work really, really nicely. He's going to be coming on the 24th of September. He's going to be live via Zoom to offer a Melinar tutorial all about his style of playing with double notes. And if you're familiar with his playing, maybe Valamai is his most iconic piece. It's all played in doubles, and he's got lots of tunes. And I've asked him specifically to choose something that's going to fit nicely on a 2-row box. So if you fit that bill, or if you are just another musician who plays a different instrument who would love to meet Bruno Latron in the flesh, flesh over Zoom, so sort of digital flesh, come and join up to my Patreon, and the Zoom link will be provided for you to join in with that. Or if you can't make the live, you'll be able to catch up with the recording in your own time. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for supporting my Patreon, and I will see you again next month when I get to interview Bruno Latron. Thanks everyone. Bye.